Welcome to the continued podcast adventures of three opinionated guys with mics and too much free time. Strong enough to stop a speeding movie rumor, more powerful than a bad comic book event, able to waste hours of time asking stupid questions to people who have better things to do. It's Dave, Ben, and John. It's Superhero Speak.
Hey everyone, you're listening to Superhero Speak, and I'm your host Dave.
And John.
And Matt.
And then this week, ladies and gentlemen, we have a very special guest with us. He is one of the creative minds behind Staunch Ambition, and it is Brian Lau. How are you doing, sir?
Doing good, man. I like how you said that, because a lot of times I say I'm the creator, and yet I have a great team of people I'm working with, so... I got some very other talented people working with me, or at least they're talented, and I utilize that talent.
Well, it's good to hear. Otherwise, it'd be wishy-washy ambition, right? So,
that name was taken. I tried it, and it was dang it, taken already. So I went with Staunch.
So for those listening, why don't you give the listeners the elevator pitch for Staunch Ambition?
So the basic idea of this story is, one of my taglines is "Welcome to the New Enlightenment." So the concept, the overall concept is, what if in our future, so this would take place in our actual possible future, as opposed to something like Star Wars, a galaxy far, far away. And what if, as the scientific age and technology came about and continues to advance, we enter the supernatural realm through advanced technology. So that's the overall idea behind the story. And then, of course, the story is really driven by the characters within that concept. So, I could throw a couple characters at you. There's a vast array, but Azarus is one of the main characters, as you'll see on the website, probably on the covers and whatnot. And in the future, the concept is, what if we would genetically engineer animals mixed with humans, and we make these worker clones with no sexual organs and a limited self-awareness, so that they would not, branch off and colonize. They would just focus on working. And in classic sci-fi, Azarus is one of these clones, and Azarus starts to question, what am I? Am I animal, human, male, female? And of course a little bit of that AI becoming human concept. So, but with a little twist, I think. So, and then Riel is another main character, and she's just a human that's one of the lead supervisors on the Ambition, which is a space station that the story starts out on, and is a big part of the story. So, her backstory is very integral to who are her parents and that kind of stuff. So. That's some of the driving forces in the story.
Cool. And so I take it you have a background in sci-fi, or at least you're a big fan of sci-fi?
Sci-fi is something I guess I just love. I love science. I love philosophy, theology. So just... I think like a lot of geeks, that stuff's just amazing. So yeah, I've always been drawn to it, and I used to just read a lot of like history or actual medical, like real, not fiction, and because I just wanted to learn. I was like, well, why would I waste my time reading, something like Lord of the Rings if it's fictional, and it's like I can be learning about history or scientific inventions or the history of medicine. And one of my favorite writers, G.K. Chesterton, I'm going to paraphrase a quote, but Chesterton is famous for saying a lot of things. This guy's brilliant, but he said, "Give me truth first, then give me fact." And paraphrasing that, to explain what he was saying, was that through fictional stories, you can still tell truths about reality, as far as what is right or wrong, or what are the moral implications of what to do, and so I started to go, you know what, that's there's a lot of value in fiction, and obviously you can write, and there have been books written on that. So I started getting into a lot of the different fictions. I'm not as well read as I would like to be, but yeah, I've always been drawn to sci-fi, and then of course all that
Right.
everything connected with it.
So most of the great sci-fi works have all like done deep dives into who we are as a species, or what's our motivation, or that sort of thing. I mean, look at Isaac Asimov and Ray Bradbury, for crying out loud. You finish reading them.
The Twilight Zone are some of the greatest sci-fi ever. And
you finish reading those, and you're questioning your own reality at that point.
Yeah, or you use an exaggerated world to bring alive real concepts in our lives, so in our reality, I should say.
Right. Cool. So, you just ran, or you're currently running a Kickstarter for issue 2?
No, that's done.
That is done, okay.
Squeaked by on that. Yeah, issue 2 is printed, and I've been hitting the cons. It's con season. I just did my first Wizard World, Columbus, Ohio.
Oh, okay.
2 weekends ago. It was a 3-day con, and that went great. Steady, and I'm just continually, as I get more issues out, obviously it gets better and better, but growing a fan base. And I just did a small mini con, and I'll be doing Wizard World 2 weekends from now in Chicago. So
oh wow, that's a big one.
Yeah, 4-day con. So boy, I'm gonna bring the lozengers and maybe a recording of my. Did you guys record it? I'm gonna play my elevator pitch. Just hey, you guys like comics? And then just hit play.
There you go.
Just don't forget the hand sanitizer.
I tell you, you get hoarse. Oh yeah, exactly. I'll wear gloves.
Cool.
Rubber gloves.
Right. So
just in case they need some more attention. I don't know. And I'm doing free checkups as well.
Cool. So so like you said, you fully funded on issue 2. Is that so? Are you doing it? Each book you're going to do a Kickstarter, or what's the story behind that? Like, how did you?
Well, we'll see. I can't. I was thinking about this concept of like free colon exams, and you come by my artist alley table. I think I'm gonna go. I'm gonna pursue that.
Well, with the state healthcare is you're a shoo-in. I mean,
I have a line, baby. Oh man. No, but the Kickstarter is obviously for someone like me. I'm an independent creator, and so I do plan on. I mean, I'm kind of winging it. Like obviously, if some kind of a publisher came up to me and offered me something, obviously all details would have to be considered. But there's who knows what you never know what could happen when you're doing something like this. But basically what probably will happen is, I'll do another Kickstarter, but my next Kickstarter, I'm going to probably go for a lower goal just because I'm building a fan base at the conventions, and little by little, it's a grind, man. Even I know my book is top quality, man. I can brag about how awesome my book is, not because, I'm doing it, but because I have, like I said, a great team. But the production value on my book is not cheap, and I'm not going to put blood, sweat, and tears in this after my day job and not be proud of it. So right. I'm making sure that this is the top of the line and up there with any of the books out. So I'm gonna probably do another Kickstarter for issue 3, and hopefully I can wean myself off a Kickstarter completely, and that's the goal.
Right. Well, I was just asking because you are fully independent at this point, and is that people know that it's not always easy to get books out, but you're doing it, which is important. So you keep mentioning your team. So why don't you tell us a little bit about your team and how you guys got together?
So the book, it started with one artist. Even before I actually got my team, that was a journey, man. I mean, I put out you talk to people. Even when I was young and still in college, I was like, I wanted to do a comic, and you try to collaborate just for free and stuff. And then later on, I got my dad passed away and left me some money, and I was like, you know what, this story will let me go, and I'm going to do it, and I don't want to kick myself and say I didn't try. So I actually had money to put toward a team, and get, I'm an artist, but I couldn't do the layouts and all that. I'm slow. I'm more of a colorist, storyteller and all that. But so I put out stuff on forums online, and I was getting like people who were terrible to people in different countries, and getting submissions. And then I found a Facebook group, Guy's Art, and this guy Tyler Thal, who is more of a concept artist, and he wants to work for and he has worked for video games like Sony PlayStation and stuff. He wanted to do a comic, so and he happened to just live walking distance from my mom, which was kind of funny, in Michigan here. I'm in Michigan. Where are you guys at?
Oh, Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
Pennsylvania?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm in California.
Oh, you're all over the world. All right. Cool.
Yeah.
Representing the United States.
Yeah.
Wait a minute. California, I think, is soon to be its own country, so you're going to be an outcast.
That's right. I'll be a foreigner.
You're not allowed in. All right. So, anyways, Tyler Thal is an amazing concept artist, and being mine's a sci-fi supernatural, I didn't want to have the traditional superhero kind of comic book look. So Tyler Thal is doing amazing, like Blade Runner concept type art, and then Tyler Thal is where it all started, and then I collaborating also with Erwin Arosa, who's in the Philippines, and I just kind of got to know him after rubbing elbows and with different independent creators, and he's amazing. And so he's doing pencils. He did my variant cover, colors and pencils, and in the preview issue, there's a prologue to the whole story that I kind of give you the elevator pitch, and I wanted that to look different, so I had Erwin just do that all straight up, and the guy's amazing. So Erwin and Rose is doing some great stuff, and then I have Neil Anderson, the next artist, he did the cover to issue 2, and he's doing the colors for Erwin's work. So because his style is very similar to Tyler, and Tyler has moved on to go do more, get more into video games and movies. So, and then I wanted to have a co-writer because I'm a little anxious or a little nervous. I'm not a writer by trade. So I was hooking up with John McNichol, but he has 9 kids, and unfortunately, he's like my age, him and his wife, and she had a stroke, and she was going through all kinds of recovery and stuff, and John's brilliant, but he's just got his hands full before that, and so John still, maybe I would send him stuff, and he might throw ideas at me, but I also hooked up with an editor, Leah Letterman, who's editing for Dirk Manning and all kinds of like big other independent publishers. And I was really impressed with her articulation and ability to edit. But then, and then having a female voice on the book, I asked her to co-write, and so that's what we're doing here on out.
Cool. So, sounds like you got a good team. And wow, 9 kids. I'm sorry.
Well, I have 2 friends who have 9 kids. My best friend, who I was we were in each other's wedding, and 2 of my friends have 9 kids.
It's unheard of in today's world.
I have 5.
Jeez.
And you get work done?
Yeah. Well, we're taking over the world, man. I get it.
You're putting because you had to pay the others. Now you're just working on free labor, right?
Oh my gosh. Yeah, I don't get paid for this. This is being an independent creator is not lucrative, and obviously unless things change. But as I build, I'm at least being able to pay for it, and little by little get away from Kickstarter and just self-fund, hopefully. So we'll see.
I was looking at your website. So you've had this concept for a long time. Yeah, for Staunch Ambition. I guess in the beginning, was it called Half-Life, or what's the story?
Right. Yeah, Half-Life. What's that?
The premise sounds a lot like Knowing, but with a much happier wet ending and a lot less Nicolas Cage.
Oh, I haven't seen Knowing. What is it's
Knowing is actually, it's got sort of the same premise. A solar flare is going to hit the Earth and destroy, literally like bake the planet and destroy humanity. And there's Nicolas Cage, and then there's aliens, and that's about all the crazy you need for one movie, really.
Well, the whole concept of the solar flare hitting the Earth is a history within my story. That's their history. So the story takes place many years after that, to where they get into a full recovery and technology advances. That I just wanted to give a little concept of like the story I'm telling's history. I kind of like that in the Lord of the Rings, because when Tolkien was going into history within his fictional story, it made his story seem to be like, oh, this is the real story, and it just gave it more levity, I think. And so I was like, I'm doing that.
Okay. Did you get the idea from real life? Because there was the solar storm of 1859 that actually knocked out almost all of the telegraph poles on the planet because of the amount of electrical interference and the fact that it like penetrated our atmosphere. And they're saying that if a solar flare of that magnitude hit us again today, it would basically be the premise of your book.
Right. It was a little sideways. That the idea of the sun being integral in my story was first and foremost. And then getting into the concept of the elevator pitch, the story, I started to consider like what would be, some good little history to their, present. And so and listening to, like I said, books on like what you're saying, dealing with the study in the sun and listening to actual, I don't remember what was the time period you said that happened?
1859. It was called the Carrington event.
I did run across that, and I'm kind of foggy on a lot of my memory is awful. My screen just went to sleep. Okay, we're not good. But the thing is, I was like, oh, bye. No, but doing a lot of study on the sun and the history and that I came across, that and several other things on all the different kinds of flares and the levels of flares that have been recorded. So, the concept came from there.
That is really cool. And kind of scary, actually.
But the half-life idea was... This Azarus character used to be more when I was in college. I had came up with a beginning visual of him that has evolved since then. But it was a little more superhero-ish and whatnot. And then years went by and everything just kept changing and it turned into this complete sci-fi idea. And I just kept writing ideas down and as ideas would come to me like the solar flare issue and all that as I would read books or studies, philosophy, science, whatever, and then it turned into this whole sci-fi supernatural concept that I have never seen done before, and I was like, I got to do this.
Cool. And so, here's a question. You had this idea for a long time. You have it out now. You're on issue 2. Do you have a plan, like an end game? Do you know how many issues the story is going to be, or are you just going to keep creating as long as you have ideas?
Well, I can keep creating this for a long time because I have a ton of ideas. There's a lot of aspects to the characters, so I know some specific stuff, like the overall concept I gave you with implication of entering the supernatural. I have what I want there. I don't have it all spelled out and written yet, but I have the concept. So it's a little organic how I'll get there, And the other thing is with Riel and Azarus, I have some plot points that I want to cover there. So as far as how many issues it is, it's going to depend on how organically it flows and how detailed I want to get with some of that to how many issues it will take. And it also depends on how the book is, growing and how much work I'm putting into it and all that, to where how far I want to take it. Do I want to tell the gigantic epic story, or do I want to just make sure I get the stories of the characters too? So we'll see how far it goes. I'm not set in stone, but it's definitely, I'm thinking, at least going to go 7, but it could go for the next 20 years. I mean, I could just write this for as long as it's going good. I can continue to write it like so many great sci-fi entities have gone on for years and years.
Well, you got plenty. You got a good start, because when some of your characters start out wondering if they're human or not, that leaves a lot of plot to be used in the future.
Yeah, that's I love the concept of getting into this distinction between human and animal, and male and female, especially. I mean, it's so like, I've been chewing on this for a while, but look at how much in the last, I've been working on this sci-fi concepts of Azra's being part animal and human and no sexual organs is before 7-10 years ago. And then it's, to where I actually had money and I'm like, look, I'm actually going to produce this. And I've been doing that for the last 5 years before we actually, even before there was a book. And then now look at how relevant that stuff is. I mean, I think it's an important topic to delve into, and there's a lot of vanishing points on it. So it should be rich with potential.
Right. Well, and that's an interesting point too, because of the people who've read the book, do you ever get feedback on those concepts? And do you get positive or negative feedback?
Oh, go ahead. I've gotten a little bit of criticism, because sometimes people are a little hesitant to criticize, right? When you're putting everything into it, and I can imagine, but of course that's what you want to hear, especially before you print. So I really tried to get editors and people to look at this, that I could go, okay, this person's not going to hold punches back, and I'm very insecure or anxious about it. I'm like, kind of go into this naive. Yeah, I want to do this. If I'm not creating something, I'm going to explode. So I'm like, yeah, I got to do this story. It won't let me go. But then you start putting it out there, and you're like, oh my gosh, I'm putting my neck out on the line here, and you start to get a little worried. But I have had confirmation that people are really digging it, and they just can't wait to find out what happens next. And one of the things is, with my first 2 issues and then the prologue's part of their histories, but the first 2 issues where the story's actually going, I wanted it to start out like a movie similar to like The Abyss, one of my favorite movies, or like Breaking Bad. And the reason I bring those 2 up is because they start out, The Abyss starts out where you got a little bit of these characters, and then the shit just hits the fan. You guys swear on this?
Yeah, no, that's fine.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
So
I'm trying to. There's a kind of a mental juxtaposition between The Abyss and then Breaking Bad. It's kind of it's like,
yeah, there is, but they have this in common. As far as what I liked about those, like, there's a vast difference. But in The Abyss, the shit just hits the fan, and you got this like Spielberg type action, which actually. The heck's his name again? Jeez, oh Pete's the director. Cameron.
James Cameron.
Yeah, James Cameron is it can be as good as Spielberg with the action. And The Abyss, I just loved that beginning action sequence, like 3 or 4 levels of action, and then Breaking Bad starts out where it's got this crazy, intense, dramatic action. He's standing out in the middle of the desert with driving like. For his life, and he's leaving a message like it's the last message he's going to leave. And you're just sitting there, your jaw dropped, like, what in the world's going on? So that's kind of the first 2 issues of my book, is what I wanted to introduce the universe through some kind of like, what the frick is going on kind of action.
Right. But I mean, what I was asking, I mean, your you're hitting some hot button topics, you know, in the world today, and there's always that fear that, you know, people are gonna not necessarily just criticize it, but, you know, come down on you as a creator, you know, because of the stories that you're telling, and
Oh yeah.
you know,
I,
and I hope you don't experience that. Is what I'm saying.
well, I have beliefs, or I have my certain take on, you know, what I believe makes
Mm-hmm.
sense and whatnot, and so what I would despise is something that's preachy. God have mercy, I hate that. And so or spoon feeding. I really hate when I get the joke on, you know, something, and then they got to show, like, I was watching something the other day, and it was obviously it was based on a true story. These psycho couple kidnapped this girl for like 7 years or something, and they have her as like a slave, and they're brainwashing her, and obviously they're crazy.
Mm-hmm.
And the one husband's like, "Hey, you didn't put a fork out for my wife, you know," and you obviously know they're lying because they're freaking crazy psychos. And she's like, "I did put one out," and he's like, "She said you didn't. Are you calling her a liar?" But then they do all that, and you know that the freaking crazy psycho woman's lying, wife, and yet they have to show a scene where she pulls the fork up and puts it back on the table to spoon feed you. And I was like, come on. I don't know why that bothers me, but I don't know. I haven't gotten into the nitty gritty of the issues of male and female and animal and human. So yeah, because that's why I kind of talked about it starts out where you're just the crap hits the fan.
Right. Yeah, and then with AI, that's an interesting time to be talking about that aspect. Artificial intelligence. I don't know if you guys heard. Did you guys all hear about the Facebook AI bots that they created?
No, I haven't.
Is that what caused all of the alt-right stuff? I don't understand.
Anyway,
wait, I remember. Yeah, I remember
they created.
They had a bot that like instantly learned how to be bad.
They created these two bots that were, and they had them talking to each other. Well, like within a day, they created their own language to talk to one another, so they didn't know what they were saying to each other anymore. So yeah, so they shut them down because they didn't know where it was going. So,
well, it's better than Microsoft's AI bot, the one that was like talking to people and literally learned to be like racist within like a half an hour.
Yeah, that's the one I was going to mention.
Well, don't put it on Twitter to learn.
Yeah, I kind of said too.
Crazy, man.
Yeah.
They should keep these things off of social media.
Well, there's a reason why a lot of the futurists in our society are saying the minute, like, as soon as AI is created, the countdown for the end of the human race starts, and there's only like a half an hour after that.
Well, there's a lot of views that way, and then I've heard some opposing views that say there's reasons that might not happen, but it does seem inevitable that whether it be through like material technology or just gene splicing and whatnot, that there's going to be some kind of a evolution of intelligence from human to some kind of mix of something.
It's coming. The question is just when, you know.
And how do we weather it? Which is where people like you come in. We need luminaries in order to show us what the worst possible outcome is so we can avoid it.
Jeez, oh, pizza, I don't know. Well, I'm a little more optimistic, but at the same time, like, I have a lot of debates with people who are anti-technology, or like people like might say like, well, humans are the cockroaches of the earth, and everything else that's living on the earth is like the elves, you know, they're part of the earth and natural, and it's great, but then the humans keep destroying it. And I'm like, yeah, there's truth to that, but there's also truth to
True.
that the innovations and technologies have done so much good as well. So there's both, and in my story, there's going to be both. It's not one or the other. I mean, it's going to be a mix.
That's probably a great way to handle it too, because isn't that more what real life usually ends up being anyway? You know, we always hope for the best, but prepare for the worst, right?
Well, what do you think of this? Is one of the background parts of my future that I don't know where I came up with this or if I heard something about it, but the idea that we figure out, one of the things in my story is that we figure out what happens when we sleep to a larger degree, and so that we can create these machines that we connect up to, and people around their belly button area have this kind of connection point, and you connect up to it, and it will regenerate your blood and put in new substance, and then take out waste. And instead of sleeping 8 hours a day, or however hours you sleep, you don't have to sleep as you. This is one of these things. It's both. It's not or one or the other. It's both. You still have to sleep, but you don't have to sleep like we do now. You can get 8 hours in 4 hours maybe. And yet people abuse this kind of technology, of course, right? They use these machines and they'll only do 1 hour of sleep. And then, like people abuse stuff today. Or they'll use these machines to get high or something. Who knows? But the whole stuff like that intrigues me. That's not what the story's about, but it's in the universe. And so how would that affect our thinking? Or what is the relevance of sleeping? And why do we sleep? And how important is that?
Well, if you don't get enough sleep, you get me. So obviously it's very important.
Well, I need to use you as a case study for the future because, you're going to have... I was thinking, like, how you have phantom limb? You guys familiar with phantom limb?
I am.
So I was thinking, what if you had some kind of a phantom sleep where because you're screwing around with it so much with this technology, that what would that be like? What would phantom sleep be like?
Okay, your books are going to be disturbing.
I don't know. No, they are PG-13. No,
I didn't mean disturbing that way. I mean disturbing in the thought-provoking type of what kind of hell am I actually living in? Is reality real type disturbing?
I do. Yeah. Hopefully, I will get into that's definitely the intent. Get into all that stuff. Yeah, I do want to have a creepy sequence of what I just said. I want it to be like where you're like think you're seeing something that's kind of like normal life, and then you're like, oh, this is not, something's going wrong here.
Right. Well, I mean, there is it is a fact that if you don't get enough sleep, you do hallucinate.
Right.
So intense daydreaming.
It's
weird.
Yeah. Usually that's the fourth day of the conventions.
Oh my gosh. You're right. You guys do a lot of conventions, or?
A few.
We have been. Yeah. I mean, not as many as we'd like, because we also have day jobs and have to support ourselves. But, New York Comic Con's coming up. We'll be at that. We've been to the Wizard World on the East Coast, on the Philly Wizard World, the Entertainment Expo. And,
yeah, they're trying to break away from that. We'll see if they do. They're trying to get into entertainment and, comics and indie books.
Do you find it useful? I mean, is going to the cons helping promotion of your materials, or?
Oh, it's huge. It's huge, yeah. It's better. I mean, Kickstarter and that are the two main things. I have the website and social media, which connects to those, but those really, the conventions, one-on-one, talking to people one-on-one is, I mean, that's just marketing, no matter what. I'm trying to sell condoms, you need that one-on-one.
Again, really interesting books.
And I speak from experience. No, I'm kidding, dude. I never sold condoms. I'm just joking. But no, in marketing, obviously that's one of the biggest aspects is, all of a sudden I mean, my book, people might look at it and think it looks great, but there's 1,000 other books. I go to a Wizard, big con, Motor City, Wizard World, and there's tons of crap to look at. It's annoying. I start knocking tables over and pouring gas on some of them because just try to narrow down the competition. But it's there's a lot to choose from, and people can't buy everything. So when you start talking to somebody, that's really where they light up and they go, "Wow, I love the quality and I like what he's saying and his passion." So
Right. So I mean, and that's a big part of it too, right? Because when it comes to art, you're selling a part of yourself. You're always selling yourself in some way. So the one-on-one time is important.
yeah, my kids, it's like, yeah. And you guys probably know what that's like with podcasts. I mean, there's tons of podcasts too. So
Yes.
We're just outlasting the others. Yeah, we're just aiming for being around after everybody else leaves.
Yeah.
No, that is true. They come and go quite a bit. Yeah. So,
Right.
so back on the topic of sci-fi a little bit. What is your favorite sci-fi movie?
Wow. Can I say more than one?
Sure.
I'll give you a handful. I already said The Abyss. I mean, you guys like The Abyss?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, it was a much deeper storyline than you got from a lot of the other genre films, horror genre films of that type back then,
Yeah.
And of course the budget and having Cameron in it was,
That guy is controversial, but he's brilliant.
Yeah. No
But
doubt.
I'll pull a couple things out of that movie to underline why it's left such an impression on me. There's the scenes in there where you have the concept was original and unique, but then at the same time, and then of course I said the action, but then there's these human moments, especially with great acting, but with the wife and the husband who are at odds, similar to that Die Hard. But there's that moment when they're gonna drown. And the water's coming up, and they have one life suit. And I mean, this to me is like gives me goosebumps as I'm talking about it. But she's telling him to listen, let me drown. The water's cold, and you're a stronger swimmer. Put the life suit on, and you swim me back. And I mean, that scene alone is like one of my favorite scenes in cinema ever. Because I'm imagining, like, wow, what would you do? Because she's making sense, and we're logical as men. But it's like, you're really going to let down and let her drown as a man when you want to protect her. Mm-hmm. But yet we're logical, and I'm just like, the drama and the complexity of that was just, it's like, I was all in with stuff like that, And then when he's trying to bring her back, and oh my gosh.
I believe that's the point of that whole scene, that you just said it, it's that instinct in men to protect, their loved ones, their wives, and that even though she gives a logical argument, he has to fight his instinct.
Oh my gosh, there's a lot of levels of fighting there. I mean, but the thing is in the acting, of course, two great actors. You got Ed Harris, and I forget her name, but gosh, she's amazing. All right, and then, okay, I'll go with another side. Unless you guys want to say something else on that.
No, go ahead.
The Abyss. And then they flip it. I'll just say one last thing on The Abyss is that it kind of flips, and when he's going down the abyss and she's walking him through something, then another magical moment. And then, okay, The Fly or The Thing. I'm not too sure which one is better. Both sci-fi, but horror.
Which thing? There were three of them. There was the 1950s one, the 1980s, and then the remake, which I really don't want to talk about.
The prequel. I enjoyed the prequel, but The Thing, not the 50s. I mean, that thing is so old.
Yeah.
It's, it's a classic, and it was good for its time, but John Carpenter's The Thing is one of the greatest movies ever made in my book. It's like 12 Angry Men quality movie, but it's a sci-fi horror. So you're talking about one of the greatest movies I think ever made. So The Thing, John Carpenter's, The prequel I thought was fun, but it doesn't. Not many movies hold a candle to The Thing.
Right.
Oh, I
And
agree.
then The Fly.
That was
The
one of the
second-
most scary movies I've ever seen. That's the first movie. When my this is back when VCRs started to be a thing. My father bought our first VCR, and that was the first movie he bought for us. And that
Wow.
was like
Nice.
really cool. Because that's a perfect movie to be able to have the ability first in your life to be able to pause. Right?
Oh my gosh, slow-mo. Oh, yeah. I tell you what, we went to go see, my mom, my brother, and I went to go see E.T. E.T. came out that same year, which is a great movie. Great, I love it, but it was sold out. So it's like, oh, well, let's go try this movie, The Thing. So I saw it in the theater. Can you imagine? You're like going to go see E.T. and you go in and you step in to see The Thing, and it's like, okay, to me, The Thing is superior to E.T., as good as E.T. is. But, and that's another reason why I enjoyed the prequel that came out years later, because I went and saw it with my brother and my mom years later, so it was just great, nostalgic, you know.
And I assume you meant The Fly from the 80s as well.
Oh, yeah. The original Fly is amazing. I mean, even better than the original The Thing, because I think the original Fly is just, it's more of a classic and just better. And that's amazing. Vincent Price, and it's creepy, and it's, I mean, you know, you got to imagine what it was like back then, the first time you're seeing that kind of stuff. But
there's a thing about Jeff Goldblum and typecasting.
Yeah.
Because, you know, he does kind of look, I mean, it was the perfect part for him.
Oh my gosh. He had that down, the way he would twitch, and then the practical effects.
Yeah. They saved on prosthetics.
Oh.
You're talking about Young Frankenstein with Peter Boyle as the monster.
Oh, yeah, that was Young Frankenstein, jeez.
You kidding me? He didn't need much makeup, but he
Yeah.
looked like the monster. But the Jeff Goldblum and Gina Davis, and who directed that again? What's his name? Kubrick? No, not Kubrick.
Was it? No.
Cronenberg?
Now I have to gotta look it up for us here.
Cronenberg.
Yeah, David Cronenberg, right?
Yeah, brilliant movie, and it's a great metaphor on. I don't know if I would have ever figured this out on my own, but you guys know what it's a metaphor on?
Oh God, I couldn't even go there. I can't get past the part where he throws up to eat things.
Well, that's a good
took
clue.
the guy's arm
Think
off.
about that in real life. What is the scenario where you have that? You know.
So it's a metaphor for eating at Arby's.
Oh. All right.
I don't know.
That is it, because that's the end of it's a metaphor for dealing with somebody either old age or dying of a disease.
Okay.
You look,
Okay,
he's
I get
in
it.
love with him, and he's dying, and he's decrepit, and it's like we really
And the hair coming out of places you don't
Yeah,
expect.
that's what I'm going through. It's and when you look at it like that, it's like you watch it again. It really hits home even more. It's like, wow, because then it actually applies to, it's not just sci-fi. It's like, this is some real shit, but it's in a exaggerated sense.
And just to add, David Cronenberg also did The Dead Zone, Videodrome, and Scanners.
Scanners. Not a big fan of Scanners, but
Yeah,
it is
well,
classic.
especially that one short video clip.
Yeah, my one friend loves that. He would send me gifts of it all day at work. Because that's what he felt like at work, I guess.
So to sum up, so far this episode, John has ruined any chance of Jeff Goldblum ever coming on, and he's ruined us any chance of getting an Arby's sponsorship. Just putting that out there.
Yeah. Because I think Goldblum is
Two birds, one
lined up
stone. All right.
to be a sponsor for
Ah,
Arby's.
see?
So you really struck out on that one, man.
He's done with apartments.com.
Yeah, so The Fly and The Thing, Alien, that's sci-fi, horror, I mean, you kidding me? I don't like horror. This is the funny thing is I'm not a horror fan genre. I love horror. I mean, I love great horror movies like Scream, but I just don't love horror. But if it's unique or something different like Scream, I'm like, wow, what a great movie, amazing, brilliant. So that's why maybe I like Alien, The Thing, or The Fly because I don't like horror for the sake of horror, but I like it if it's in the context of something intelligent and intriguing. So.
So you don't think that you'll bring any of that kind of writing into your books, or?
Yes, I will, but it will be PG-13. It would be like Lord of the Rings, the movies.
Okay.
But yes, I mean, in fact, in my issue 3, I have a sequence it's awesome. I don't want to give anything away, but you view a comic as a live action because that's what it is. It's a storyboard of camera angles and live action. So just imagining it, and it's just such a great sequence. I can't wait to see what Irwin does with it. It's going to be amazing, and it should be horrific without going as far as a rated R movie. Which the greatest directors have proven to be some of the most effective horror or drama ever made. I mean, you got Hitchcock is one of the greatest directors ever, most influential, and he just laid the groundwork for that.
True. And Hitchcock was a master of not showing things. More or less, the camera goes off in a different direction because the concept is what's in your mind is much scarier than what they could ever put on film.
Often. Because then you see if they decide, and you're like, oh. Except unless it's The Thing. You're like, oh my God, that's worse than I was thinking.
This is true.
Yeah.
Or unless it's John when he first gets up in the morning.
No sleep, John is the crux of.
Well, if I did get enough sleep, I would have coherent thoughts, and I would be useless on the show.
Yeah, I used to think when I was younger, and you're very influential, that you had to do drugs to really be artistic, which is kind of sometimes gets a rep that way, and I've come to think otherwise, but maybe it's because it's a lack of sleep. Having 5 kids and a day job, I don't need drugs, man.
Well, geez, a day job, writing this stuff, and then 5 kids. I'm surprised, that you get any sleep.
Yeah, and I can't, I wish I can crank these books out once a month or that, but I'm not even close to that. But like I said, the production value in these books are huge, and I'm a perfectionist, and of course I got all these other plates I'm juggling. So, and then even just the book alone, marketing it, doing the cons, doing all kinds of, learning stuff. There's a lot of overhead when you first do your book, and you have to learn, how to build, where do I build a website, how, or just simply the banner. I'll just use the banner that I have for my Comic-Cons. You got to do all this research on what banner to buy and the material, and then you got to design it and price them out, and it's insane. There's so much stuff beyond the actual book itself.
So, can you lay down some wisdom for anybody listening to this who are thinking, who have their own idea and are hell-bent on doing it, that, the amount of work put into it, what they can expect?
Well, I did a lot of research on, I love studying. I was talking about philosophy, science, all that. One of the other things I've done a lot of studying on is entrepreneurism. So podcasts, books, movies, videos on entrepreneur and the ins and outs of why this became a success and what they did, like something you're asking me. So do a lot of research. But in my research, before I did the book or started doing this book, over and over I would hear what I'm going to say. And I would think, yeah, okay, it's a lot of work. But they would say, it's a lot of work doing a comic book, and you're gonna, don't expect to sleep and be up late, and so now I'm living that, and I'm realizing that that is a big truth. So that's something that you'll hear over and over, and you'll have to come to grips with that on your own terms. But and what else could there be? I mean, depends on certain circumstances, but I think here's another thing that's said a lot. Start out with a short story or do something short, and I'm like, obviously that's not what I'm doing necessarily. Like I said, I might do a character arc and with an ending there, but I'm doing, this is what was moving me, and this story took a hold of me and wouldn't let me go. So I'm doing this story, and we'll see where it goes. So I would recommend not do a short story necessarily, but do what you're passionate about, and it's a lot of work. So you're going to have passion to get you through so many obstacles, even when you're getting burnt out. There's a million obstacles and there's a ton of competition. So you have to be passionate about it. So don't do something you're not passionate about. So don't listen to somebody and they say do a short story if you don't want to tell that. But if you're going to be able to do that, of course your short story is not going to take as long and all that. So you might be willing to do that.
You're not the first person to tell us that, actually. Because it seems like it's one of those common wisdom things that a lot of people say that, that a lot of writing courses will tell you that, you can't start off with a novel. You have to start with short stories and novelettes and all that and work your way up. And we've had a couple of authors that say, well, yeah, but if you don't want to write a short story is a completely different animal. Just start writing your novel and see how it goes.
Yeah, and I couldn't agree more. And I'm not saying it's one of these things again. I think it's both. It's and or. So there's some truth to the idea of maybe do write a short story, but I'm not a writer. See, this is the difference. So if someone's giving advice to a writer, I think more so it would apply to a writer. Yeah, write some short stories because they want to write for a living. I never wanted to write. This is a story that I just want to tell. That's why I'm collaborating with actual writers, because I was very shy about coming in and writing. I'm not a novelist. I can't spell for crap, and my grammar's awful. So the thing is I know I can tell a story because this story is compelling to me. So do whatever fits and that you're inspired to do.
Right. So the one thing we didn't really talk about that we usually talk to our guests about who are independent creators. What comic books do you like?
Well, I grew up reading the Hulk, Spider-Man, X-Men, Daredevil, so very Marvel based, and then of course I do love Superman, Batman, Flash. And but I got sucked into comics more so, some DC, but more so Marvel. You laugh. Some kind of history to that. Where you guys fall on the Marvel DC?
No, he's our glorious leader is a Marvel guy, and I'm one of the DC guys, and
I'm the other DC guy.
Yeah, this is one.
Uh-oh. Yeah, that's why the Marvel guy giggled when I was saying that. Yeah, that's what I thought. But Spider-Man is one of my favorite characters. And so, but then I got out of comics for a while. I obviously having kids, this and that. And then my kids started getting a little older, and I'm reading to them. I thought, what if I get them some comics? And I started reading them comics. And I started getting back into comics a little bit with Civil War.
Okay.
Which I'm glad to have done so, because now not only were they great, beautiful art, and the stories were awesome, but you got movies now based upon them. And when you start seeing, when you're my age and you have pretty much your whole childhood, the biggest success a comic book movie had was Howard the Duck. You're like, you're like, this is something when you see a major motion picture movie based upon a comic book you read, and not just about the character, but it's literally drawing from the storyline of the comic book. So now that's happening left and
Hey,
right.
Leah Thompson was good in that, though.
Yeah,
she'd
be good in just sitting still, I guess.
I have to stop for 1 second, and I have to ask Matt, since he is the youngest one here. Have you ever seen the original Howard the Duck movie?
When I was younger.
All right. So all right.
You were younger than this?
Making sure you had a reference.
Did you see the original, the Fantastic Four movies are not good, but did you see the original 80s Fantastic Four?
No.
Cody?
Just what,
Huh?
Yeah, just clips on YouTube.
Oh, so you have seen the clips of the
Yeah.
Fantastic arm stretching and punching people?
Still a better plotline than anything Fox
I've
has
seen
done.
that.
Like, okay, good. That's all you need to see, actually. Yeah. The Captain America wasn't too bad in the 80s for that time, but nothing.
Except for the time he stole the car, but, you know.
And then Captain America TV shows, oh my God.
Yeah.
That's what I grew up with, man. Abuse. But I do like, I don't have, I really struggle with being able to read comics these days because it's like, I don't have the time, man.
Right.
So, the last series I read that I really enjoyed was Astonishing X-Men 1 through 25 by Josh Whedon, and I loved it.
Oh, okay, yeah. They were good books.
It was a while ago.
Yeah, no, I get it. I get it too. I mean, I'm like you. I'd gotten out of comics a little bit before I got married and had kids. Probably around the time of the Clone Saga.
Oh, okay.
And then I got sucked back in with Civil War and was collecting for a while.
Yeah,
and then
me
it's
too.
just don't really have the time.
It's tough, but yeah, I do make time to read. Like, I'm independent, so I have a lot of independent friends, and I make time to read. So Grenadon, my artist Irwin is doing the drawings for Grenadon, and it's kind of like a what's the word for it? The Game of Thrones type medieval. Well, it's more of the medieval, but not. I don't think he's gonna have dragons and all that in there, but it's kind of like the Lord. Well, Lord of the Rings is another fantasy, but it's medieval and it's gorgeous and it's so well written. So that one I couldn't recommend higher. And I don't think I'm just being biased. It's because I read a lot of independent books from friends and they're okay or good, but this one's really good.
Cool. People should check that out then.
Yeah, Grenadon, it's awesome.
Cool. All right. So the question we normally like to wrap up on, and you kind of hinted at it a little bit with the question that John asked you, but I'm gonna have you expand on it. And that question we usually end on is, how do you measure success?
Ooh, that's a great question. I did hit on it. All right. Well, this is one of my ideas of success. One of my Well, I'll start with what I don't think it is because I'm really strong about this monetary idea of success, of having money, playing the lottery, or I don't know if you guys ever seen the Ed McMahon, sweepstakes, and if you look at any real studies of people who've won millions of dollars, and you look at the amount of people that were studied and how they felt about their life before they won and after, years after, and it's always a high percentage of just their lives were worse.
Right.
Or I don't know if you ever seen Treasure of the Sierra Madre with Humphrey Bogart, but you have? Okay, one of the great. Huh?
Yeah, I'm old. I'm old, so
You're old too. Well, good for that because that's one of the greatest movies ever. I mean, you had John Huston and what was it? His father won the Academy Award in the movie, and it was directed by his own son, John Huston and William Huston, I think. But anyways, that movie deals with this concept of what happens to people sometimes when they come into money. But so success to me is I would say ultimately doing something that is edifying in some sense. I would say would be a nutshell.
Okay.
And that could be a complex thing, but making the world a better place in some sense.
Okay.
Whatever you do.
All right. That's what we've been doing wrong, guys. We're not trying to make the world a better place. What?
Especially if you're an Arby's employee.
Oh. Well, you're already damned if you're that. So.
Making the world a better place, one happy meal at a time.
There we go. I like that.
Well, if you like providing enemas, then sure, you know.
That's what I'm going to be doing at my next
That's
time.
right.
Sign me up.
Free enema, everybody who buys a book. So I don't want all my fans to be full of, And I won't be either, just to let you know. I'm just trying to think of ways to market it. There's a lot of competition out there. And
well, for your fans that won't be at the next con, what's the best place for them to find you online?
Online, as everything's Staunch Ambition. So I have a website, staunchambition.com. I have the Facebook, Twitter. I'm most active on Facebook and Twitter. You have Instagram, Tumblr, and what's that other one? The Picturica. I always want to call it Picturica, but it's Pinterest. Yeah.
Yep.
But mainly there, the website, Facebook, and Twitter, Instagram.
All right, cool.
Staunch Ambition.
Staunch Ambition. Easy to remember. Yeah, and all those.
And I have 2 original songs written for the book. We never got into that as far as that, but I'm not a musician, but I have a couple melodies I compose and played, and I always dreamed of giving them to real musicians and having them produced into real music. So I was like, heck, I'm going to do that for my book. So I use them in my trailers. So when you go to the website, you can see a couple of my Kickstarter trailers with the music in the background, and they just fit perfect. So I have an electronic instrumental song, and I have an alternate or a rock song by 2 actual musicians, groups and musicians.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, they turned out great.
Awesome. That's actually a pretty cool aspect. So,
yeah, I send them to people who buy my book so they can actually have the music while they read the book or whatnot.
Cool. Well, people should check out your website so they can hear them.
Yeah.
I think that's the important lesson here. That
is this live? You guys did this live?
No, this isn't live. No.
Yeah. Hey, you feel free if you want to put the music. I don't know if you guys use music, but if you want to put it in there as a bumper music, go ahead.
Okay.
I can send them to you if you need the MP3s.
All right, no, that's perfect. In fact, now that you've said that, boys and girls, at the end of this episode, you'll hear the music.
I'll let you pick if you want to play both or one of the 2. I'll let you pick.
Perfect.
I'll send.
What if Weird Al Yankovic's polkas? That should do, right?
Amish Paradise.
Yes, there you go.
I love Weird Al. I've seen him in concert. So you and I are just hitting.
I think there's a bromance here forming.
Oh, jeez.
Let's go meet up.
John, I think later Brian will give you an enema.
Oh God. Is that what the kids do these days? I don't understand.
It's just research for my book.
I don't know. Is that what the kids do today now, Matt? I know this for everyone.
No, not that I'm aware of. So, not in my circle of friends.
Okay. All right.
Good.
Cool. So I think that's a good place to put a pin in it for this week. So as always, boys and girls, don't let your cape get caught in the door. Have a good week.
In your mind, somewhere in outer space, in a different time, from another place. Not sure who I am, I'm not sure what I've done. I'm burning alive in this bubble on the sun. What we'll see, go where you've never been, an endless possibility. But don't get lost down a troubled road. Some won't be so kind, and some you'll